Strip down process is pretty much done now. Front wheel arch liners out, obviously the wheels off first, the front little wings off, and then that gives us access to take the front outer seals off, sorry, the outer seals in general. And now earlier on this one we could see that there was a good section missing around here, and it's obvious why. It's because if the inner one's missing and the outer one, which is even thinner, was obviously eaten away as well. So we've got some definite holes and problems in this area. This is part of the chassis of the car. It's a good, we're going to measure that, it's a good 1.5 or 2 millimeters thick. It's a very strong, long piece. Currently, it's early 2021. These aren't available from BMW. They haven't put them no longer available, so that means there probably is a plan to make them again in the future. However, they've got what they call no delivery date from supplier. That means that BMW haven't got any plans to put them into production right at the moment, so they may well want a quantity of orders to be placed to guarantee that they're going to get sales. But whatever happens, right now at the moment we can't have new ones from BMW, so we've got options of either getting a donor Z3 that's got good seals at a scrapyard or a breakers, which is extremely rare. Z3s aren't always in the best conditions on the lower seals, and finding them, they're harder to find nowadays, so that's probably not going to be happening. We will, but other than that, we're looking at fabricating work. So what we just missed on the video, because the video turned itself off, is that hole there was able just to be pushed through with a thumb, so that's obviously not very strong in that area there. That's the holes that the car came through with, and that's the one that we've just created by just poking. So we're going to be fabricating, it looks like, if the owner obviously wants to go ahead with this, because it's, let's face it, it's a lot more work than just what we would normally show on our YouTube channel, which is seal refreshing work, which is where we get rid of the corrosion, mainly at the front end of the car, behind the front wheels, and then but we do treat all the way through and then do our process. Again, there's videos on YouTube if you want to see what we usually do. This one's obviously a lot worse. It needs cutting out and fabricating if we're going to go with that. Some of it is just surface corrosion, which isn't too bad, and that will come up. However, there is a black paint that's been applied by the looks of it. Black paint's been put on top of the rust, so that tells us that somebody knew about this and they've tried covering it up or hiding it, probably at the same time of doing the welded repair at the front right jack-in point area. Some of them are small enough to show little holes in there, which is obviously going to open up once we start using machinery to clean this metal, so that area will need work, but some of it might be able to survive. We don't know yet what we're going to find under there, whether it is just an MOT patch which has just been covering and hiding the metal, if it's still under there, the rusted metal that is, or whether they've been good enough to cut it out so that it doesn't travel. We don't know, but the fact that they weren't too bothered with the looks of it, they didn't shape it necessarily perfectly to the angle of the floor pan or the seal section, and there's no hole in there for the jack-in pad to go into, hence the block of wood, so it wasn't executed to the best of standards, although it did perform the job and it allowed the MOT to pass. Front edge isn't too bad. This is what they should look like. This is an untouched left-hand side, so there's no black paint. This is just e-coat or electrophoretic paint, as we call it. The back left is particularly corroded, but yet we're not seeing the bigger holes that we found on the right-hand side, although there is problems. It looks like there's a lot of crunchy metal up there, if you might be able to hear that. Which you're going to see what's going on once we support the car in a slightly different way, get the jack-in pads out, and then start using machinery to clean up all this metal and see if any of it is structural or whether it can be considered surface corrosion. But even if it is just surface corrosion, some of it is heavy. This center section is not too bad. This front section, even if there's no holes in there, that surface corrosion is heavy and the metal will be affected. So there'll be peaks and troughs in that metal. It won't be smooth metal like this. It will be distorted when you zoomed in and looked at it on a microscopic level. And therefore there's always a risk keeping that sort of metal on the vehicle. But we'll know a bit more, and if we're going to have to cut out and refabricate this section around the front jacking point, because that sounds quite crispy as well, or whether it can be just treated and gone over. I mean, we'll speak with the owner, see what their plans are, and see how long they want this sort of repair to last, if it's a few years or if they want to keep the car forever and make it last for another 20 years, and then we'll go from there. So Dave's been bare metal in the sill section to discover how deep this corrosion is, and we've got some big holes developing where we can see right into the inner cavity of the car. If that's not bad enough, this is exactly why we don't like MOT welding repairs, because they are just temporary fixes. Look what somebody's left behind underneath there. It's almost like a smiley face looking at us, 2 eyes, a nose and a little mouth in there. So yeah, this is what the welded piece is looking like when we got the car. First of all, remember there was no jacking block. We weren't too impressed with the welding and the fact that there was nowhere to put a jacking pad, and we thought that there was a risk that they could have left it all under there, but what was all that about? I mean, that's just going to cause future problems. It's not even solving the issue, is it? Because that's just hiding it. All that is just going to carry on tracking and eventually start to rot this piece of metal out as well. So great that the owners decided to get it done professionally with us at Reddish Motorsport, but what a shame to see somebody treat such an iconic car just like that. You've probably just watched some time lapse of what we're doing on the left rear. So that included bare metal in the area to understand where the corrosion finished, and then also cutting out the affected section and then cleaning up the inside section, painting it with Por 15 liquid, which is a neutralizing agent for the corrosion remnants, and then we've put a weld through primer on the inside, and now we're just templating that gap that we've cut out of that near side rear sill section. This is where the jacking point would be, so it's quite a critical area. That's the raised stamped part in the sill section. And also, this part here acts as a drain channel. That should be where any water and moisture that's found its way into the seal is able to drain out. Now, that was completely full of sealer on this inside, so it was never acting as a drain. So that's possibly why some of this corroded badly. And now we've managed to replicate, well, actually, technician Dave has made an absolute fantastic job of replicating this piece. Here's the bit that we cut out, which has got the squares in it for the receiving plugs, which are what the self-tapping screws screw into once they've actually got the jacking pad in this section here. So the jacking pad fits around here. What you can't see in this picture because of the corrosion is that the metal sculpts inwards to allow a recess for the jacking pad to sit in, and that's been replicated perfectly on this new piece. We're using 2mm steel, which is exactly what the sill sections are made out of, and we've got everything set out. We've got the correct squares or rectangles in position, because later on there's plugs that need to go in here to make sure the outer seal panels screw in correctly. We've got the OEM locations for the spot weld holes drilled. That's where we're going to be doing plug welding, and we're extremely pleased with the exact match situation on there. And once that's on, we're going to then trim the edge to where we need it to be, and that fits really well. So we're going to get some paint onto the inside of that, weld through primer, which is paramount, and then start getting that welded up soon. Here's some of the new bits for the Z3. Obviously not that old seal. That one is the exact reason why we're replacing the new one. So look how much is missing and eaten away. And I know some of that is textured paint, but under there, some of that is corrosion that's creeping. So lots of that missing and terrible corrosion on the back of that. I'll just spin that over to show you what it was looking like and how much corrosion has been traveling up the inside of that seal section, and a big section missing around the jacking point. So we're obviously replacing that. 2 new genuine BMW seal sections, a left and a right, and then lots of other small components to get them fitted. So we've got speed clips, self-tapping screws, Presto cages, plastic nuts, the female receivers there, and then also the little aquaplane guards that go around the jacking points. We're just waiting for the BMW new jacking points to arrive as well. Then we can think about getting these painted. Obviously we're going to paint the backs of these as well with a textured stone chip to make sure they're protected, unlike these BMW ones, which are almost haven't got any paint on them. They're completely bare, so no wonder they corrode quite badly. So we'll make sure we get these protected a lot better than the first versions. What a transformation. We can see now that the full seal structure is being fabricated and welded in. So we've got an original looking seal finish with all the correct angles, the correct squares cut into them for the fixings, and also the apertures opened up for the jacking pads as well. So technician Dave has done a stunning job replicating these, absolutely fantastic compared to the sort of patchwork that we found that was on there originally, hiding some of this. And on the left hand side of the car as well, we didn't have to change so much. We didn't have to do the entire seal, but we did have to do good big sections of it around the jacking point. So there was a large section that had to be cut out and reconstructed, and this is all our work. This isn't a new BMW panel because you can't get them. This isn't one that we've cut off a car, and I'm sorry if I sound quite proud about it, but we absolutely are. It's a really good outcome. We've absolutely enjoyed doing this over the past week or so, and we're going to be very shortly painting it and covering it up for the last time. Hopefully you've enjoyed some of the time-lapse videos as well that we've been had at an angle like this, for example, looking at the reconstructive work and fabrication work that went on to take out this corner and then reconstruct it and weld it in. And the same with some of the other corners. Now, we're going to try and do that on some future videos and just show that a little bit more. Now, all of this side had to be replaced, and I hope that it blends in so the normal sort of eye doesn't really see where our joins and blend lines are. But this is exactly the same steel, 2mm thick steel, so it's not going to be rusting out earlier. It's going to be hugely protected now compared to the BMW standards. Also, we've got weld-through primer on the backs of every component and hidden cavities so that there's never any chance of bare metal. We're just preparing the metal. That's why it's gone a bit of a dull colour, because we're using a chemical by Pore 15 called Metal Prep, which neutralises any potential corrosion, however small, and also coats it with a zinc phosphate finish, which is a great adhesion layer for the next, or the very first stage of paints, which are going to be etch primer. So that'll be coming up now. You can see we're just protecting the car once more, doing a new fresh body cover, and also starting to protect the ramp arms and things like that. We still have to do more. This isn't our red paint, by the way. This is obviously whoever's painted the car before, but we have to do more now and just carry on masking the car, because obviously we only want to paint the sill sections and the rears of them and the overlapping sections and where it just blends into the normal floor pan, which is effectively that line just there. So we're not far off doing that, and I just wanted to show what it's looking like now, because we probably won't get to see it again very clearly because it's starting to be painted and going to get sealed as well. So it's etch primer, high build primer, sprayable seam sealer, probably the e-coat finish, maybe a dusting of body coat, which is a Mola Red 2 405 paint code, and then lots and lots of cavity waxing all through the hidden sections, which you'll see that over the following bits of the video. Let's just pan down on this right hand side and see, and remember what this seal was. This is the one that we took out. This is the original BMW seal. Here's the very front jacking point area, and you can see just down there are the weld lines where a previous workshop had put a plate over it, effectively getting it through the MOT, but ultimately hiding all this hidden corrosion that was still growing. So we obviously took that out, as you saw if you've been watching for the start of the video. And at the rear, well, that was it. The jacking point was there. All the rest of the seal was just completely missing. There was holes in it. So it's come a long way in the last week. And next up, we'll be starting to see the final stages of when we start the paint protection process. So you might have seen some footage there where we're looking at this side being painted with the sprayable seam sealer, which gives this lovely textured finish. And that is more resistant to stone chips and any potential weathering that the car is going to receive compared to the original e-coat or electrophoretic coating that BMW applied when the car was brand new, effectively at the body stage. So that's all been applied throughout the seals, front to back, on the left and the right. And then once that's dried, then we've gone over it with a Mola Red 2, which is obviously the body colour. We've done a sort of a gentle blending. Now, the seals completely weren't red. They were e-coat, as we looked at the start of the video. But the underside of the car was red. So underneath the dirt, when we cleaned it off, there was a strong colour, body colour of red, which wasn't just an overspray. It looked like there was a bit more than just overspray. So we've done the underside join on a soft edge line in a Mola Red, and then just a gentle blend out. You can see it obviously fades out quite naturally, as if to mimic sort of an overspray pattern from what we like to think as the robots that painted the car. So that's our version of it. It might not be absolutely perfect, but I certainly taken some care and attention to detail compared to other repair options out there. or for example, the very small plate that was welded on to get the car through the MOT previously. So that's just drying now. We've got the infrared drying lamps on, which I've turned off actually, just to show you the lovely, wonderful seals that have been painted as well. So we're looking at the lower edge of this one, which has got that typical textured finish that these cars have on the lower seal, in the swage line as well, which is a relative soft edge comparison. You can see that on this one. There is the textured finish up to what's a soft edge line, and then we've got the Emola Red outer body paint, which is looking perfect straight out of the gun, reflective already, and once that's dry we'll obviously polish that, which will make it even more perfect. But we're very pleased with how these are coming out, and we can't wait to get them on the car and fitted up. The final fit up is complete, and we've got the new outer seals fitted, a great colour match, and remember we've got that lovely textured swage line in the normal position, perfect colour on top, textured underneath, and we've got all the new clipping points as well. So we've got BMW seal fixings, new jacking points, new aquaplane guards with the correct pieces, and a gentle blend out into the underside, which believe me is red underneath the road grime that all cars do have on them. And then going down to the front as well, mud flaps are refitted, obviously the wings are on, the wheels are back on, and it just looks like a really great job. We'll see a bit more of this when the car's down on the ground, and we'll probably do an outside video just to show the complete finished effect. And what we're doing now is just doing targeted wax, local transparent wax. Dave's doing that on not only on the bolt heads of the fixings, but also making sure that certain areas that are susceptible to stone chips are getting protected with a transparent wax, so we know we're not going to suffer any immediate problems in the future. And we think with the amount of effort and work that we've put into these, not just the outer panels but the actual structure of the car, the inner panels, there's no reason why these shouldn't last a 20 years set just like these original ones did. So hopefully you found that really interesting, and let's get the car outside and see what it looks like from a distance.